A mature woman is exhausted by the performance of modern dating. She has reached a point in her life where words are simply no longer enough to impress her. She has heard every perfectly rehearsed compliment, read every carefully crafted good morning text, and sat across the table from men who tried desperately to say all the right things. The reality is that words are cheap, easy to fake, and require absolutely no real emotional commitment. The sweet talk that might have given her butterflies in her 20s now just makes her skeptical. She has built a guarded heart not because she is cold, but because she has learned the hard way that a man's promises often fall short of his actions. She is no longer looking for a poet. She is looking for undeniable, grounded truth. This is exactly why touch is the only thing that can actually crack open that armor. Human beings are biologically wired for physical connection long before we ever learn to understand language. When you touch a woman, you instantly stop communicating with her logical brain, the part of her that is constantly analyzing, protecting, and overthinking everything you say. Instead, you start speaking directly to her nervous system. You bypass the guards at the gate entirely. A genuine, intentional physical touch cannot be faked, and her body recognizes that honesty the second you make contact. To understand just how powerful this is, look at the groundbreaking research from UC Berkeley. Scientists conducted a study where strangers were separated by a barrier. They could not see each other's faces, read their body language, or hear a single word. One person was asked to communicate specific, complex emotions simply by reaching through a hole and touching the other stranger's arm for just a few seconds. The results were absolutely staggering. With zero verbal context, people were able to accurately identify emotions like sympathy, gratitude, and even love up to 78% of the time. Think about the profound weight of that statistic. It proves that your hands possess an entire vocabulary of their own, and a woman's skin acts as a highly sensitive receiver that immediately picks up on the exact frequency of your intentions. Your mouth wishes it could be as clear and effective as your hands. When a man is anxious, controlling, or unsure of himself, a woman feels it instantly in his touch. But when a man is truly grounded, his physical presence transmits a wave of pure security. For a woman who has spent years being her own protector, provider, and emotional anchor, experiencing this kind of grounded touch is like taking a deep breath after holding it for a decade. It is a silent transmission that says, I am here, I am solid, and you do not have to carry the weight of the world all by yourself right now. That unspoken communication of safety, desire, and unshakable confidence does more to melt her defenses than 1,000 romantic speeches ever could. Ultimately, a mature woman does not fall in love with what she hears. She falls in love with what she feels. Let us start with the very first touch that quietly rewires how a mature woman feels about you, the slow lower back guide. Before you roll your eyes and dismiss this as basic gentleman behavior that you already know, you need to understand the powerful science behind why this specific gesture hits so differently. When you place your hand gently on the small of a woman's back, perhaps while guiding her through a crowded restaurant, walking her through a doorway, or standing closely beside her at an event, you are making direct contact with one of the most nerve-dense areas of the human body. The lower back contains a massive cluster of nerve endings that wire straight into the brain's emotional processing centers. A warm, confident hand placed there sends a chemical signal that completely bypasses her logical, overthinking mind. However, the difference between a touch that makes her melt and a touch that makes her recoil comes down entirely to speed and pressure. If you give her a quick, casual pat on the back, it feels cold, dismissive, and entirely platonic, like something your uncle would do at a family barbecue. On the flip side, if you come in with a heavy, forceful push, it feels dominating, aggressive, and controlling. But when you use a slow, steady placement of your full palm with just enough weight to communicate that you are completely aware of her presence, magic happens. Her nervous system reads that specific pressure as absolute safety. Her brain releases oxytocin, and she instantly starts associating your presence with a deep sense of calm. This specific touch resonates so deeply with a mature woman because of her life experience. By the time a woman has reached a certain stage in life, she has spent years being the strong one. She has had to handle her own problems, protect her own peace, and carry the entire weight of her world on her own shoulders without anyone stepping in to help. When a man places his hand on her lower back with quiet, unshakable confidence, it is never about control. It is pure, wordless communication. It tells her loud and clear that she does not have to carry everything alone right now. For a woman who is exhausted from being her own protector, that single gesture can feel profoundly more romantic than 100 expensive gifts or 100 empty compliments. Moving on to touch number 2, the two-handed handhold, which is a technique that is criminally underrated in modern dating. Most people hold hands out of sheer habit, interlocking fingers casually while walking down the street like teenagers at a shopping mall. That kind of touch is common, forgettable, and lacks any real emotional weight. What you want to do instead is entirely different. This is when you take her hand normally, and then bring your other hand over to completely cradle it, holding one of her hands securely between both of yours. You might do this during a deep conversation at a table, during a quiet moment in the car, or right after she has opened up to you about something vulnerable. This touch works so effectively because of a concept known in psychology as bilateral stimulation. When both of your hands are actively engaged in holding hers, it creates a balanced, symmetrical sensory input that her human brain interprets as total, undivided attention and absolute emotional presence. Therapists actually utilize similar bilateral touch techniques in specialized trauma and anxiety treatments to help people feel anchored and secure in their environment. So when you cup her hand with both of yours, you are giving her nervous system a direct, undeniable signal that says, you are right here, you are paying attention, and she is completely safe with you. For a mature woman, receiving this kind of focused touch is devastating in the absolute best possible way. She has likely spent years dealing with partners who were physically in the same room, but mentally checked out elsewhere. Their physical body might have been sitting across from her at the dinner table, but their mind was entirely trapped inside their phone screen, stressed about work, or distracted by a million other things. When you take her hand with both of yours, look her directly in the eyes, and listen while she speaks, you are offering her something she may have genuinely stopped believing existed: complete, undivided, embodied presence. When she feels the warmth of both your hands wrapped around hers with pure intention, her brain instantly realizes that you are entirely different from the men who came before you. And once a mature woman realizes you are different, no other man will ever be able to compete with that level of connection. Moving on to touch number 3, the forehead press. This is the moment that catches most women completely off guard, and for good reason. I am not talking about a quick, casual forehead kiss, though that has its place. I am talking about the profound, grounding act of gently pressing your own forehead directly against hers. When you do this, your eyes close naturally, your breathing begins to sync up with hers, and the chaotic noise of the outside world instantly fades into absolute silence. To anyone on the outside, it might sound overly intimate for something so simple, but the psychological weight behind this specific gesture is enormous. Relationship researchers who study adult attachment call these micro-interactions bonding moments. They activate the exact same deep attachment systems in the adult brain that a mother's touch activates in an infant. The reason this touch is so uniquely powerful is because it requires absolute, mutual vulnerability. You cannot fake a forehead press from across a crowded room. You cannot perform it casually while checking your phone. You have to physically step into her space, slow right down, and let your own guard completely drop. For a mature woman who has spent years building emotional walls high enough to block out the disappointments of the world, this touch acts as a quiet, respectful knock on a door she forgot she even had. It does not demand anything from her. It does not try to escalate or rush into anything physical. It simply communicates a pure, unspoken message. I am right here with you, and right now, nothing else in the world matters. A man who can hold that space without rushing, without cracking an awkward joke because the intimacy feels too intense, demonstrates a level of emotional intelligence and maturity that most people never show in an entire lifetime. Next up is touch number 4, the nape of the neck touch. This is a move that packs an incredible punch because of how the human body is biologically wired. The back of the neck is quite literally one of the most sensitive and vulnerable areas on your entire body. It is densely packed with nerve endings, and because it sits in a blind spot that people cannot easily see or protect on their own, touching it creates an immediate, simultaneous spike in both physiological arousal and deep trust. Most physical touches in dating only trigger one or the other. They either feel exciting or they feel safe. This specific touch manages to trigger both at the exact same time. When a man gently places his fingers or his palm on the back of a woman's neck, perhaps while sitting beside her on a couch or leaning in close to tell her something quietly, her brain goes through a rapid-fire evaluation. She instantly asks herself, "Am I safe? Do I trust this person? Does this feel good?" If her internal answer to all three questions is yes, her physical response is instantaneous. Her breathing shifts, her heart rate settles into a comfortable rhythm, and her body releases a powerful cocktail of dopamine and oxytocin, which is the exact chemical blend responsible for genuine romantic attachment. This is precisely why a woman's life stage changes everything about how this lands. A younger woman might miss the subtle significance entirely, but a mature woman has lived long enough to instantly recognize what is being communicated. It shows supreme confidence without a single trace of aggression. It shows raw desire without a hint of desperation. It shows a deep sense of familiarity without assuming boundaries. It is a sophisticated, master-level move, which also comes with a golden rule. Timing is everything. You cannot walk up to a woman you just met 5 minutes ago and touch the back of her neck. That is not romantic. That is a fast track to making her uncomfortable. This touch works because it is earned. It comes only after trust has already been built as a natural progression, and a mature woman knows how to spot the difference instantly. Finally, we arrive at touch number 5, the unconscious thumb stroke. This is where the actual psychology of touch becomes genuinely fascinating because of how sneaky and effective it is. The thumb stroke happens naturally when you are already holding her hand, or when your hand is resting casually on her arm, her shoulder, or her knee. Without drawing any attention to it, and without you even looking down at your hands, your thumb begins to move slowly back and forth against her skin in small, rhythmic strokes. You do not announce what you are doing. You just keep right on talking and laughing as if nothing special is happening. This works because of a very specific class of specialized skin nerves called C-tactile afferents. These unique nerves do not respond to hard pressure or fast grabs. They are specifically designed to react to slow, gentle, stroking touch, and they are wired directly into the regions of the brain that process social bonding and deep emotional connection. Scientific studies on human touch have shown that this exact type of slow stroking activates the insular cortex, which is the brain's headquarters for feelings of genuine intimacy. In other words, when your thumb moves slowly across her skin while you are talking about something completely ordinary, you are literally triggering the exact biological button inside her brain that makes her feel close to you. Because this touch is so subtle and effortless, she might not even consciously realize you are doing it in the moment, but her nervous system absolutely registers it. Her body responds on a cellular level, and emotionally, she starts feeling drawn to you in a way she cannot even logically explain. This is why it feels almost unfair to other men. A mature woman who has spent years in relationships where affection felt cold, performative, or completely absent will feel that small, absent-minded thumb stroke and think to herself, "He doesn't even realize he's doing this. This is just who he is." That single realization, the belief that your tenderness is completely natural rather than calculated to impress her, is what finally shatters her defenses. It is not the grand gestures or the expensive dates that win her over. It is the unconscious, gentle movement of your thumb while the world goes quiet around you. Moving on to touch number 6, what I call the silent pull. This is the exact moment when you are sitting beside her on a couch or standing right next to her, and without saying a single word, without asking for permission, and without making any kind of awkward announcement, you simply reach over and pull her closer to your body. Maybe your arm wraps around her shoulder to draw her in, or maybe your hand finds her waist to comfortably close the physical gap between you. There is no verbal warning, no "come here for a second," and no hesitation, just smooth, confident movement. This specific touch works because it taps straight into a principle that relationship and attachment researchers call proximity seeking. In secure attachment theory, one of the most reliable and instinctual signs of a healthy, secure bond is the natural, unforced desire to reduce physical distance between two people who care about each other. When you pull her closer simply because the space between you feels wrong, you are mirroring the exact behavior of a securely attached partner. You are communicating through your actions rather than your words. The distance between us right now is too much, and I want you closer to me. For a mature woman, this simple act is profoundly emotional because of a harsh reality that nobody talks about. Many women over 35 or 40 have spent years in past relationships feeling like they constantly had to earn affection. They internalize the belief that they had to be attractive enough, agreeable enough, accommodating enough, or useful enough to deserve basic physical warmth. They have been with partners where physical closeness only ever happened when the other person wanted something in return, turning affection into a transaction rather than an expression of love. So when a man reaches out and pulls her close simply because he wants her near him, not because he is performing for an audience, not because he is trying to initiate something physical, and not because she asked for it, but just because the distance felt wrong, it completely rewrites the story she has been telling herself for years. It proves to her that she is wanted purely for her presence, for her energy, and for simply existing next to him. If you do not think that is powerful enough to make a woman fall completely, it is because you have never watched a confident, self-sufficient, accomplished woman visibly melt into the side of a man who wordlessly pulled her closer while the rest of the world faded away. We arrive at touch number 7, the one I saved for last because it carries more psychological and emotional weight than everything else on this list combined. This is the long hold hug. I am not talking about a quick, polite squeeze that feels like a formality. I am not talking about the awkward, one-armed side hug that says, I acknowledge that your physical existence is happening right next to me, but I would rather not fully commit to this. I am talking about a full, both arms wrapped, chest-to-chest embrace that lasts for a minimum of 20 seconds. And yes, that exact number is specific for a very important scientific reason. Research published in major physiological and endocrinological journals has proven that hugs lasting 20 seconds or longer trigger a massive, undeniable release of oxytocin throughout the body, while simultaneously dropping cortisol levels, which is the primary hormone responsible for stress and anxiety. This means that a long, unhurried hug does not just make a woman feel loved or cared for, it literally lowers her stress at a biological level. Her heart rate slows down, her blood pressure drops, and her nervous system physically shifts out of sympathetic activation, which is the exhausting fight-or-flight mode we all live in, and drops straight into parasympathetic rest, which is the only state where true emotional openness and deep bonding become possible. This is the exact reason why professional relationship therapists prescribe extended hugging to couples in crisis or on the edge of separation. Dr. John Gottman, whose legendary research on human relationships spans over 4 decades, recommends prolonged physical holding as one of the most effective, clinically proven tools for rebuilding shattered trust between partners. It is not a poetic metaphor or a feel-good internet suggestion. It is a hard science intervention that changes brain chemistry. By the time a mature woman reaches her 40s, 50s, or beyond, she has likely survived profound loss, hidden heartbreak, betrayal, and silent loneliness that she never talks about. She has learned to hold herself together so tightly and so gracefully that most people around her have no idea she is even hurting. She has had to become her own entire support system, simply because she had no other choice. When you wrap your arms around a woman like that and you hold on, not for a rushed 2 seconds, but for a full, unhurried, genuine embrace that clearly communicates, I am not letting go until you are ready, something inside her shifts uncontrollably. Every single wall she has built, every defense mechanism she has perfected over decades, and every survival instinct telling her to stay guarded will instantly soften. Not because she is weak, but because for the first time in a very long time, she finally does not have to be strong. That is the absolute pinnacle of what human touch can achieve. It does not just excite her or impress her, it provides deep, profound relief. It gives her permission to stop holding the weight of the world on her shoulders for just one quiet moment. If you can be the man who gives her that safe harbor, she will not just fall in love with you. She will choose you deliberately, repeatedly, and with every single part of herself that she has been protecting from the wrong people for years.